See, like I could just like yell all sorts of obscenities off of my balcony, and the parents will be like, "Don't go near the crazy lady on the corner because you're gonna learn dirty words." How rad is that? Like all I have to do is like scream obscenities over my balcony, and I'm in the clear, man. These crazy ass kids that are spreading COVID-19. I'm in the clear. All I have to do is like say really mean things to them and like scar them and say crazy. Your mother doesn't love you. What's wrong with you? I can totally just fight with their fucking heads every goddamn day and be that crazy lady on the corner, and I can scare these shitheads away from my property. I totally do this every day, and I think I'm going to. I think that is my coronavirus plan, is that I'm going to say the meanest, fucked up things possible to the children in my community, who are all children of MAGA ass hats. And I'm going to scar your fucking children every goddamn day that you let them play unsupervised in front of my property. Damn fucking straight. I will scar their fucking heads to the point that it lasts with them through their fucking old age. I will scar them. Keep your fucking kids away from my property.
What you just heard was audio from a video that Jenna Beck took of herself, posted online, and took the initiative to threaten the children of her community, to scar them for life. This is an individual who has multiple videos of allegations against myself. This is a person who has, in the past few weeks, 2 sets of physical assault and rape claims that have been proven false, one against me, and in my rebuttal video to one of her many videos about me, I produced the audio clip of her own voice, which proves she was lying. She accused Don Ford of raping her to me twice, and when pressed on it, she admitted it never happened. And Don Ford has also produced on his social media accounts that show that he's aware of this. He knows this. Jenna Beck is she's got a history of this. She is I guess you could say she presents herself as according to what it says on her online presence, a politician, a community organizer, an activist, a journalist, and as you can see, myself, Don, the PDA Padaka. I kept hearing her say Padaka, so I believe the Padaka it's a call that she's on. But just bottom line is it's a group of people that she works with constantly that she tried to get me. First, she was going to the person who leads it, that group that she said was her mentor. So this guy, Dr. Bill, she tried to figure out a way to convince his wife that there was infidelity going on in their marriage so that she could take him down, and this other person, Danette, who was apparently bossed up into those circles and is doing a lot of the things that Jenna Beck couldn't get done. So, and then the Danette person, she wanted me personally, she gave me a script that she wanted me to call the GOP of Orange County and report these people that she works with every day. Same thing with the Los Amigos people, sent in these calls that she has with people at night. She would tell me about these calls. She'd tell me about everything that they had just decided and all. And, I didn't really, it's not my deal. I'm not a Democrat or involved in any of her stuff, but she would talk about it. And then as soon as I was done listening to her, I just said, it's enough. It's not my deal. Or somehow I'd get her off this topic. She would pick up the phone or get online and start calling people and telling them what was said on these other calls and start working against the people that she was just talking to. And she's got these weird rationales for it, but it's just a complete pattern over and over again. She's constantly saying that she's stalked. She says the DNC is stalking her. The Orange County GOP is stalking her. Karen Bernal and the Bernie's Coffee Brigade is stalking her. She says, I'm stalking her. She says, Don Kernoodle, he's stalking her. She says, the Door and the MPP nexus is stalking her. She says Rose McGowan, and this is a video that you can go look for yourself. She posts this stuff for herself. I'm not exaggerating. She says Rose McGowan is stalking her YouTube channel, which each video gets like 5, 10, 15, 20 videos. But she claims Rose McGowan is stalking her videos in order to diminish her sex appeal. This is what Jenna Beck says, man. This is a person who is drunk 24 hours a day because they start drinking as soon as they get up and they drink until they pass out. So they're still drunk when they wake up the next day, and they drive everywhere in that state. You know, you gotta ask yourself, it's, oh, nobody got hurt yet. Nobody got hurt yet. Well, what if? How cool is it going to be? Everybody knew she was driving drunk the whole time. And God forbid, you know, a child gets hurt or a family gets hurt or something like that. And everybody just gets to wring their hands and say, oh, that Jenna, she was, what a bad person, but you all knew she was doing it. So I have to put out a retraction right now because she presents herself online as under the titles that I told you, and these different various organizations that she works with, for whatever reason, they're all at war with her. None of them can stand her. They're trying to kick her out. They've suspended her from a bunch of them, but none of them are making her take the titles down. So between her made up, it's not a real online magazine. It's just her little blog that looks like a magazine. And then the other titles that she's got, it looks like she's a journalist. It looks like she's an activist. It looks like she's an organizer. It looks like she's a politician. She's none of those things and don't have no results to show. But I didn't realize that. She had written an article. How I found her was through her magazine. She had written an article online about pasta fazool and the combo couch. Some of it added up. So I began to talk to her and see if the rest of her stuff added up. And she never really veered too far. She would just stick it to that subject. So I definitely never saw anything like the video that you guys just heard the audio of. If I would have known that in advance, this would have never happened. I would have never spoken another word to that person. Somebody who threatens children like that, it's too far out of bounds. So on the strength of my recommendation, John Brisson put her on his show. We gave her an interview, and she made a lot of wild claims against, you know, people assaulting her, against all these conspiracies. And she never backed any of those things up. She still to this day never backed any of those things up. When I went out to California, she never had any evidence that Karen Bernal was controlling the Jimmy Dore network. Absolutely nothing. The only thing she's ever produced any evidence on is a few internal California Democratic Party investigations that were already initiated by other people. She has absolutely no results. And if you want to know the truth about, because I stayed with this person for 2 weeks, that incident where she was screaming about those children, what she told me was that her MAGA neighbors were training their children commando style to jump over the wall to her condo and attack her. In the video, you hear her saying, oh, they keep coming by my property. What she doesn't tell you is she just has this little rinky-dink corner condo that's right at the entrance exit point of the main place to come in and out of her development there. So it's not like some place way on the corner that kids are going and they shouldn't be there. Like they're just walking around their own neighborhood doing whatever. And she hates kids so much, as you could hear, that apparently she got out of line with the neighbors to the point that there was an incident. And what she claimed is she tried to call the sheriffs on them, and she almost got arrested by the sheriffs when they came there. So this isn't like I was there though. Nobody cared about her. Nobody was attacking her. Nobody cared. I would go down to the pool and I would come back and she would be all freaked out that I was cavorting with her MAGA neighbors, but none of them really cared. And it never even came up other than the kids who said that she didn't give out candy or something. Nobody cares. This is her own system of antagonizing and provoking and sinking to whatever level it takes to attack people, to finally get a response. And then she says she's being stalked and she's being harassed and all these things. The fact is, she claimed that her neighbors had thrown a violent MAGA parade to attack her. And when she finally showed me the footage, it was like a couple families walking down the street, waving to everybody in their little development. Yeah, they had their Trump flags out, but they're also saying, go get out and vote for whoever you want. They were smiling at her. They were waving at her. She's constantly inventing drama so that people will pay attention to her, so that people will feel sorry for her. And I could go on and on. And this situation with her could take up the whole conversation and nothing would get accomplished and nothing would ever get revealed. And that's kind of the point with these people, because she kicked up a lot of dust and she made all this noise and she never produced any results, period. Never produced any evidence, anything that is actionable that you could take to the bank. And what I want to highlight here is that when I talked with these fellas at the Antidote before, when I talked to Mr. John Brisson, what we were saying is the Max Blumenthal effect, when I was speaking about how it affects progressive circles and leftist circles and woke, conscious, gonzo, radical, whatever circles, is that and the things that we had spoken about on our last interview, this is like the proof of what we were talking about, because Max Blumenthal in his operations gets good people who would normally see through this to say, oh, no, I guess there is a reason why the Uyghurs are being treated like that. Oh, I guess there is a good reason for the stuff going on in Myanmar. I guess there is a good reason for here, there, everywhere, because they trust Max Blumenthal and they've been kind of like almost bullied into accepting him as the gold standard of investigative independent journalism. So not only does it compromise those people who normally would never fall for this and would be the first people to stand up against this kind of stuff, it opens the door for people like Jenna Beck to come in, a person who has no results of their own, a person who has no connection to anything by her own. She claims she's this big political brainiac, but you look on her Twitter and she's like, I went to something in 2017 and I was so new that I didn't even understand what was going on. She's not the only one. Her and Tokyo Shemp and DJ Elf7 and the rest of the bottom feeders at the bottom of the idiot ecosystem, whether they want to admit it or not, they're compromised and they're in the ecosystem now. And that's something important that we're going to address, because it's not just like different factions or whatever. They're all in the same idiot ecosystem, which all ends up serving, believe it or not, and we'll prove it, the Democratic Party, which ultimately ends up serving the duopoly. That's the goal of what's going on. And instead of go on for the rest of the conversation and talk about all the stupid personal lies that Jenna Beck surrounds her life with, everybody knows she's a liar. You look on her Twitter and her YouTube stuff, she's just a miserable drunk. And she said everything that you can imagine about me. And she said everything that you can imagine about everybody else. Like I said, Don Knuddle, she said that dude raped her. And in the video she put out, she said I was slapping her. She said this Tim guy has assaulted her 7 ways to Sunday. She says Rose McGowan is stalking her media to try and lessen her sex appeal or something. So we're going to cut off with the Jenna Beck thing right now, just to let you know that she is serving as the example of people caught up or that insert themselves into the situations we're talking about. She's not really the problem. It's unfortunate for me, because she outed me as a whistleblower after pretending she's a journalist and saying that my identity was safe and all this stuff. But by doing so, she put potentially everyone around me, including my children, at risk. But you can see with the audio that we played, and you can hear for yourself, she don't care about children. Somebody who would say that kind of stuff about children. And after I got there, I seen by her own admission that it was all lies. No kids were commando attacking her. She's prepared to do this kind of stuff, not just to me, somebody who was trying to help her, but to children. And when you've got people that are that far gone, there's a line that I don't allow anything to cross. It's children. And when you cross that line, you're on the other side. And I think most people feel that way. So we're going to close up shop on that. We will return to it from time to time to use it as an example, but keep in mind that rather than go on a full however long conversation of Maury Povich type drama, we let that fool set the example for herself of her and the people that she represents, whether they all know it or not. That's the thing with Jenna Beck, not interested in an ongoing drama fest. So with that, I think there's a lot of accusations made about me. Some of them regarded my religion. So if I'm going to tackle that next, and how I became Muslim, And I'm going to talk about the situation at the AMI, which is something a lot of people have wanted me to speak on. But until now, until my identity was burned by Jenna Beck, I wasn't comfortable speaking that or any of the other things that we're going to talk about. I was trying to contact the people that were supposedly progressive leftist journalists and have them do it. I was going to, you guys know the deal. I was trying to feed them the info, and they weren't down. And nobody ever said the info wasn't good. They all said they wanted the info. Matter of fact, what they said was the info was too real, and that's when I realized they're too fake. They're not really about the stuff that they say they're about. That's what we're going to be exposing. Is there anything you would like to add onto this, man?
No, I just want to say that you've been forced into a situation here to defend yourself in relationship to this and having your identity now exposed. So I think it is important that you, tell us yourself who you are and what you've been through and what you know about.
Okay. I'm going to get into that, and this is going to it'll kind of be a little winding tale for all the people who just want to find out, the basic dumb stuff about the ecosystem, and you only care about me telling names and stuff like that. I guess you could skip around and try and find it, but you might as well listen because you're going to have to go back and hear the whole thing through anyway. I'm not a person who likes to talk about this stuff. I don't do interviews. This has never been me. Like the homie just said, I'm forced into this. I never wanted a career in media doing this stuff. I never wanted any of this stuff. I was trying to bring this information that I had that everybody else knew was legit to the people who said that they were the troubadours of truth telling. And maybe Jenna Beck could take one little note here, is that she keeps saying my name and attaching me to Combo Couch and Rose McGowan and all the biggest names she can think of. The reason why you're not getting any traction, Numbskull, is because if I was a BSer and I didn't have nothing, they'd be right there lighting me up, talking with you. It'd be nonstop out of their mouth about me. You've been doing this for over a month and they ain't bit. You know why? Because they know what I'm saying is for real. And they're scared. They just want me to go away. They want this topic to die. They don't want to be exposed anymore. And if what I said wasn't legit, they would have talked about me nonstop, because that's what they do, is run their mouth about non-legitimate issues. So one of the things that was I was accused of as being not a real Muslim who goes from mosque to scam money. We're going to address this right now in terms of, first of all, who I am as a Muslim, and we're going to talk about the crisis in the Muslim community regarding reverts, converts, however you would like to label the people who come from outside of the faith into the fold of Islam. Growing up, I had initial respect for Muslims. Initially, what I knew really was like what you would call black Muslims, 5%ers and those guys. And to be honest, I never really saw racism out of them. People say that they're racist people, and I'm sure they, some of their doctrine or whatever has racism or racist literature about it. But I never saw that. They always treated everybody the same, even, the little white kids. And like if they had food and they were feeding kids, every kid got fed. This is almost an entirely black African-American area that I grew up in. But still, there's always few little kids, and sometimes the little white kid, she's the one who is more poor. They're the one who has, because they're not, they're the only one living in their area like that. So I think these people picked up on it, and when I could see what they're doing, I said, I got respect for them, and I'm kind of caught in the two worlds growing up, because I'm in the gang worlds and stuff like that. And I know that those Muslim guys didn't like it, but they never judged us or told us they would say, like, what you're doing is bad. You guys there's a better way, but they never said, they knew what was up. They knew why we were doing what we were doing, and they didn't break us down for it. They just tried to show us a better way. Eventually, you learn about Muhammad Ali, and then you learn about this and that, and you keep learning and learning, and finally you realize that, at least you get a fuller appreciation of the scope of Islam. And it's not just an American thing, that how you kind of grow up knowing about it through Nation of Islam, 5%ers, that type of thing. So eventually I was raised Roman Catholic. I was baptized. Went to a CCD and all that stuff. And I did feel good about the church. I didn't like, the stuff with the molesting kids, but to be honest, I never had that issue. The priests in my life were all really good people who helped me to become a better person. I had a couple nuns who would, they'd want to put the beat down on you pretty quick, but, it never deterred a player, But I remember even then I had this strong connection with God, and I still loved Jesus, but I never prayed to Jesus. I always just prayed to God. And I didn't know that at the time what I was doing, but that was just the way it was. And eventually I met someone special to me, and I didn't know they were a Muslim at first. It's just like this beautiful, super artistic, rowdy. She's just like this, kind of like a force of nature. She's a little chick, but she's from another country, and I didn't know she was Muslim at first. She just dressed like in her own style, and she didn't talk about it or anything. And she was just like, typical, not typical, but she was a rowdy, artistic person. So being a pious Muslim isn't what just jumped into my mind when I met her. But we start kicking it, and she's getting all sprung, and I kind of like her too. And I start settling her down because she's been all over the world, and she's got all this money. Like, her family is a kind of family where when people say, "Oh, money is not an object," and they're like, that it's a cliche or something, but for them, it really wasn't. They could do whatever they wanted. But to her credit, I never knew that at first. She just seemed like a regular person, and not regular, once again, not regular or typical, but she didn't portray herself as having any kind of resources like that. And I never got the feeling that she was trying to buy her friendship with me. I felt like she, I know she legitimately was sprung in, and I liked her too. So we start kicking it. We're getting more involved. I found out she's Muslim and things. And before, she's with all these, she was in Seattle for art school. There's like a few art schools there. I think she attended a few of them. And, she was in all the high post clubs and bars, and she's kind of known in the little fake artistic scene, the hipster scene. But I'm like, oh, it's just a bunch of hipsters who hang out, and these aren't real artists and shit. But, she's just hanging out with whoever she knows. Then she meets me, and my graffiti is all over the city. I'm an all city king, 2 or 3 years running. It's just like we go into different neighborhoods, and all I have to do is point, and there's me. So I'm showing her that I'm about art too. And she knows about my fighting and about I DJ, I'll go off and DJ breakdance battles or whatever. So she knows that I'm a serious artist too. And she knows who the people that I'm with. My art was just like my activism. My mixtapes were some of the best selling in Seattle, but almost nobody knew me because the way I did it, I made it all about the music and me getting paid off of what I believe was the message that I was putting into my CDs rather than my face or promoting myself. So I got a pretty good reputation with people that she eventually realizes, oh, these are somebody. So she's seeing me with the people that she wants to get to or that she would like to work with. And she sees these people are looking at me like I'm the man. And by the way, I'm not the man at one point, maybe, but we'll get to where I'm at right now. Definitely not in that position. But she sees me as this, whatever she wanted to see me as. And she stops drinking and she stops hitting the bars. And over time, she whatever, I can't remember what it was at the time. It was like Smirnoff or Alizé or something, but whatever it was at the time was the most expensive, most high potent wine coolers. And she always had a 6-pack of that in the fridge. And one day I wanted to get something to drink, and she's like, go get some out of the fridge. I'm like, oh, you drink this stuff? And she's like, yeah, that's my breakfast drink. And she was serious. It wasn't like she was trying to be a hipster. She would just get up and then she'd go out and do her thing. That all changed when we started kicking it. She used to want to take us because like I said, she had money for days. So it's always going out to the restaurant and stuff. And I eventually started telling her, I don't want to go out to the restaurant, man. I don't want to, I worked over at the Pike Place Market. I was like, I can just go get us the best stuff. It's fresher. It's better than anything in any restaurant. We can cook it up, and I'm spending time with you. I don't want to keep going out to the restaurants. That's not my money anyway. And she was down because she liked to cook, and she liked to cook the meals from her nation, and she knew that I liked them, so she liked to do that. But even though she was a soldier in her own way, she was also a spoiled parents, rich kid, so she wouldn't want to do it too much. And she just want to go back out to, ordering stuff out. And, eventually I think she got some food service at this, some local person from her nation was delivering the food of their nation specifically to the kids that were going to college. You just signed up for it and they would deliver the food, and it was super good. So She tried to like one day she tried to like hide it and like eat it and just give me a little bite of it. And she's like, "Oh no, go into the refrigerator. There's all this like fancy Whole Foods food." And I was like, "No, let me take a bite of that." And I liked it. And I don't know, maybe it's the dominance or something. But I just kind of was like, "I need this, man." And like every day I would eat that food, and she would try and be like, "Oh, that was." I would say, "No, man, you know the deal. You're supposed to be cooking this, you know." So in a way, I did kind of, get a unfair advantage to my learning of her cuisine. But eventually, she stopped. Even like she would share that, and then she's getting more into a less commercial lifestyle. Then she's we're starting to really know each other. We're starting to trust each other. I'm starting to get to the point where I can introduce her to my friends and get her studio time and do stuff like that. I'm trying to figure out a way to make it so she can still be creative and do her thing, but without all these, to be honest, leeches, because none of those people that were around her would be like, "Hey, let's not go out to eat and spend your money." They're like, "Hey, whatever, you're paying for drinks, you're paying for food, great." And I was the person who'd be like, "No, I don't want to do that. Don't, like, you save your money for you. Let's just go do something and spend time." And obviously she liked me for other reasons, but I think when she saw that, she's like, "Okay, this person doesn't care about my money. They care about me." So she went from being like this super wild, like knucklehead kind of person that just, you know, running wild, to we start to fall in love and something happens and we start making plans. And our future plans for life was to continue her with her music and stuff. And she did, clothing design. She did a lot of stuff, and me mainly just with fighting. I was stepping away from hip hop at that point. And instead of doing all the crazy stuff she used to talk about, she's like, "I want to open a daycare. We can go back to my country and we'll open a daycare there, and we can just we'll have all the kids around them. It's a happy thing, and we can bring in kids that don't have their family doesn't have the money. We'll have some rich people pay for that and balance it out." And that she had changed from being this super wild person. She would actually come to the, eventually when I become Muslim, she would come to the Friday prayers, and she would never go to Friday prayers before. And when it was Ramadan, she'd get food and cook it. So I was helping her reconnect with her Islam the same way she was introducing real Islam to me. Now, when something happened and then we decided we were going to get married, she told me, she's like, "I'm already in an arranged marriage." And it wasn't like the brutal ones you hear about, but still it was some dude that she liked. She's like, "I love this guy, but just not like that. I love him as a friend, but my parents have this big business and they really like him and trust him and they want him to take over it. So that's kind of what this marriage is, to bring our families together." And my perspective was, no, this is my nation. When I go to other people's lands, I don't act a fool and get all wild. I don't try and sleep with a bunch of women and, do all this kind of crazy stuff. So if you come to somebody else's land and you're in their land and you're living by their rules, in America, they would look at this and say, "Hey, you tried to force your daughter into a relationship. She met this guy who loves her. This dude is treating her right and getting her out of all that stupid stuff. Forget about it. It's a wrap. She's with this guy." And I said, "I'll keep her." And then I also says, "I'll keep our child," because she was pregnant. That was a thing that brought us together. And I'm going to tell you right now what my introduction to Islam was. She said she wanted to have this child. She said she wanted to get married. She told her family. She kind of disappeared for a second. The next thing you know, I'm not really going to get into it, but I got a phone call that it was an excuse, but what had happened was they murdered my daughter before I ever got to hold her, because it was embarrassing to their family, and it was going to expose the fact that their arranged marriage wasn't going to happen. So my introduction to Islam was losing my daughter so that these people could save face for their for their financial aspects of their businesses and whatever else, and just didn't want people to know. But I don't know, you tell me, maybe whether it's Islam, Judaism, or Christianity, what's the bigger sin? To murder the child that your child's broken womb, because nobody thought she could have children, was blessed with, or to do what I did. And when I lost that, I realized that I realized that Islam was important enough to me that I wasn't going to lose it. And I really got serious, and I knew it was time to convert. So even though she was gone after that, I fasted that first Ramadan, and then later on I went to Toronto, Canada, because 9/11 had just kicked off and a few years ago, and I was like, I want to go to a place, if I'm going to convert, I want to go to a place that's not at war, because I don't want to hear pro-America or pro-Muslim or whatever political stuff. I just wanted to learn about the faith. So I went to Toronto, converted, uh, did my thing there, came back, and as far as I know, that I've seen very little of that female ever since. From what I know, she went from cleaning up her life with me, getting pregnant, because I'm pretty good at that, I think. You know, she said that she couldn't have children and that it was a miracle that it happened. And, you know, she wanted to open a daycare center with me. Now she's a complete degenerate wreck. She was one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. She just looks horrible now. She just let herself go, and she just lives this rich bohemian goofball lifestyle. It's like there's no religion left to her. She's like just totally threw it all away and joined the secular world, and that's what her parents are left with now. So that's what their family is left with after they murdered my daughter, because they thought she was too embarrassing. But I knew Islam was real and right for me, and I didn't want to let it go. So I did become Muslim. And then after I came back, this is the crisis that I'm talking about with the Muslims who are reverts or converts, however you want to describe us. If what I'm going to describe now, if this was just me, then I would be able to say, okay, I'm not strong enough to do this. I failed. Islam was too much for me. The problem is on me. The issue, though, is that it's not just me. It's convert after convert after convert after convert after convert after convert from all these different walks of life, black, white, from prison, we're rich, female, male, whatever. I don't know too many converts that this thing has worked out for you. I'll be honest with you. I don't know too many converts that are doing swell. I know a lot of converts who are hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And it's not because we didn't give enough and we weren't prepared. It's because the born and bred Muslim is running a scam and a meat grinder, and we're part of the product that goes in there. So in regards to that, when you become a Muslim, there's new employment restrictions. So like for myself, I didn't do music anymore. I quit music after that. No more bars or other haram things, anything to do with alcohol, and riba, which is interest, is out, completely out.
And
so you can't have anything to do with.
What does haram mean specifically?
Haram means completely forbidden. Halal means it's completely permissible. Haram means it's completely illegal. And I forget how to say the word that's in the middle. It's like, well, it's not advisable, but it's not illegal either. So certain things that are haram, we just stop doing. It means we also got to get new financial restrictions, because like with the riba, like I said, the interest, we can never, ever, ever charge somebody interest. We can be charged interest if we're in a non-Muslim land, or if we're dealing with somebody who's like, we try our best and there's no way to get around it, we can't do it, okay, we get charged interest. But we're never, ever, ever allowed to charge somebody else interest. And another new thing we get is new business partners, because we're encouraged to do business with the mosque and the people there and the community and their contacts. And we're told, like, brother or sister, you just joined the ummah. It's a giant ummah. And if one part of it feels hurt, then everybody feels sick. And we're all brothers and sisters, and we're all together. And this is the way. If you do these things and you live by this Islamic code of ethics, you're going to see the results. You're going to see the this. You're going to see the that. And it's true, if people were really living by those code of ethics, we would see that. But the truth is, what they're telling us is a lie. The reality is that what they are selling us does not exist. And I can't state that clear enough. The reality is what the born and bred Muslims attempt to sell the rest of the world. It doesn't exist. Because the only way you can still deal with these people is if you either got seemingly limitless resources and you're just going to give it up forever, or if you get, as soon as you recognize the things I'm saying, you get away. Neither of those was the case for me. So the severe impact is like, your employment, your credit, your housing, all that stuff gets ruined because you're dancing around trying to figure out this, you're trying to fit into these rules because these people are telling you like if you charge somebody a riba, it's like sleeping with your mother. If you do this, it's like all these different things to like horrify you and try and get you to walk this super hard line. So eventually when things fall apart because they're trying to get you to buy into something that doesn't exist. They're like, when I started out as a new Muslim, I had money. I was secure. I was one of the top prospects in my sport. People were really looking to see what I was going to do. And now we're going to see what I can do because I'm going to have to fight because that's how I'm going to get the money to do what I got to do for my family. But it didn't start out like that. I was giving my money all the time. I was volunteering my time. And that's what it is. You just see this constant succession of like new converts and reverts that come in all starry-eyed and we're ready to do everything. We're ready to give and we're ready to give. And we just get turned out. And we'll be watching it and we're looking at each other like, what's the deal? Isn't this can't be real? Is this right? And it's the same way at pretty much every single mosque. So if you're in this position, say you were already had your own family and you convert and then you go through the stuff I'm talking about, your family is shattered because you can't support them. You can't do it. That doesn't work. Now, if you married a born and bred Muslim, when this happens, what they do is they just take the kids back to their family because they've got a family, they've got a tribe, they've got a clan, they've got a mosque, they've got a community. You are isolated. You have isolated yourself, or like me or whatever, because you've been listening to these other people that say, keep your business with them. Don't hang out with these other people. Stick with these people. Well, these people are bums. And they don't have any of the stuff that they said they do. So, like, for example, like the riba thing, like it took me years to find out the truth that none of this stuff existed. Eventually, some Muslims would be honest with me. They'd be like, brother, you can't do this. The reason why you're in this position is because what people told you, it's a lie. These systems and these things and all these different ideas and these different things they're trying to get you to do, it doesn't exist. We don't do that. We don't live like that because all our banks have interest in them. And then you're just so hurt because you're like, I ruined my life. It feels like for nothing. Like, your soul is saved as long as you stay in Islam, but you ruined your life. And what you did was you watched these other people ruin your life for you because you had a good thing going. Islam was supposed to be the thing that took you to the next level. And so many of us, it's the thing that saves our soul, but it's the thing that ruins our life. But you keep hanging on to this dream and you hold on to it harder and harder because you can't believe that you're like, it can't all be for nothing. It can't, like, there's got to be real Muslims. There's got to be real community. There's got to be people who are really working. And you just keep trying and you keep trying and you keep finding out that it don't exist. There's no way to live the way that they pump you up to try and live. It's impossible. It'd be impossible. And it's impossible in their own lands. That's what you find out. It's not just that you couldn't do it here. They don't even do it in their land. So why are they telling us this stuff in the first place? Because they've been doing this for decades and they see what happens to us and they see us getting turned out like this over and over. But these people, partly they don't know anybody better. They're just not very capable people. Partly they're really wicked, evil people and they like seeing people suffer. And the other part is if you got something, whether it's money or effort, they'll take that until you can't give no more. And then they, kick you to the curb. So you've hung on to this thing. Everything's shattered. You've lost everything. A lot of people fall into homelessness or substance abuse. Some of them just savage out and be like, well, I see these Muslims doing whatever, born and bred Muslims doing whatever they're going to do. I'm just going to live for myself and chase wine, women, and song or whatever it is. Women can do the same thing. So then then after you fall into those kind of things, then you're getting depressed, like really depressed because you're away from what the goal was supposed to be. And you feel like, man, I failed because now, somehow not only did I not get that, but I went this bad route. So then finally you start to look at other converts of other faiths and you look at how they're treated and you look at how valued those people are and how much people care about them. And, you know, in the Muslim tradition, these people are supposed to be coming to our lands. And the new Muslim, we're the one who's supposed to be cultivated and built up to be the leader in our own lands. And it never happens here. It's the opposite. They work against it every single time. And it's that way all over. Like, it's like that way here. It's like that way in Europe. It's just the way it is. So you finally realize, did I make a mistake? Because I love this religion. I love this deen, but I hate these people, man. And I hate what they do, because look at what they just did to me. And I see them doing to this person over here and this person over here and this person over here. And we try and get together and we try and tell them about it. And then they don't want to listen. They get mad at us, tell us, well, don't come to the mosque then, you know, or don't tell me about it, even though they're supposed to be the leaders. So then you really start to doubt yourself, your faith in God. And then comes the stage where you're angry at God. You start to hate yourself and you start to hate God because of the situation. And this is played out over and over and over and over again. And I'm going to give you a couple examples so you don't think that I'm just, oh yeah, woe is me. There is a brother, an African-American brother. He had just converted. He was an older gentleman. And one of the things they said was he didn't really like need the work, but he was like, you know, I'm still trying to stay active. And I think he ran like a little league thing before, something like football or baseball or something. And that was kind of the deal. Everybody told him, yeah, he's got these skills and he's going to become a Muslim and he's going to. So they bring him into the fold and he starts thinking like, okay, well, now I'm going to start doing this stuff. And none of the born and bred Muslims will do anything. They won't set it up. They won't do anything. And he's like, you know, they'll like have him, give him the run around and have him get a proposal together and have him get other new Muslims and non-Muslims that support him and put a presentation or whatever. And it never goes nowhere. So eventually he's like a lot of us, only like he took it even farther where he was like super dedicated and he's just trying to find work with the Muslims and things like that. And he's going down, 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 and he's getting more and more depressed and everybody can see it. And instead of helping the guy, what the born and bred Muslims did was talk trash about him behind his back. And eventually, and I'll break down to this, how this process seems to play out. They take everything that they can get out of you when you've got something that they feel they want. After that, when you're like, hey, my life is ruined because I've been trying to jump through the hoops that you guys I was doing my own thing in life and I was okay. I could provide for myself. When I started trying to do all the things that you guys directed me to do, that I found out later that none of you do anyway, my life's ruined. Well, if a Christian's life is ruined, the congregations, you know, as long as they're legit, they'll come in and help them up, get them back up. And then, you know, that person is back on their feet again. And all these mosques and all these, you know, born and bred Muslims and all their programs and stuff, they all say they have these things. None of them have it. I've never seen one serious program at any mosque that dealt with any of this stuff. The truth is, once they get everything they can out of you, and then one of the main things they want is really to be able to go and tell other like Christians or Jewish or whatever that they got you. They got one of you. You're not with them anymore. He's with us now. She's with us. She's going to marry one of us. You know, that's a big thing they like to talk about. Is like, it's like they think they're beating the non-Muslim by possessing their women or something like that. So finally you're all turfed out and you're like, I need help. I need assistance. When I was a Christian, they would have never did this to me. But if it had happened, they see who I am. They see I'm legit. They're going to help me back up. None of that stuff is at the mosques. So eventually I start saying, well, I've been a part of building successful nonprofits before. I've been a part of not any kind of duopoly stuff, but independent political campaigns. I've helped shut down child prisons, blah, 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 blah. So I start, and this is all stuff that eventually the mosques will start hiring non-Muslims to do because they don't know how, same way like in their own lands. You got a land with nothing but oil. It's been that way the whole time, and you still haven't figured out how to do it yourself because you're too stupid and lazy. So you got to bring in a bunch of Westerners to do it for you, and they pilfer a bunch of the money that should be going to the people, but they don't care because the ones that are on top are getting enough money to keep themselves in yachts, right? So you're like, all right, I need the help, man. I need these programs to materialize now that you've been promising the whole time, that you've been raising money off of, that you've been getting all this support off of. I need it to be real now. And what you find out is people are like, oh, why does this guy keep coming around? He's always wanting money. Why is he always complaining? Why is he always wanting us to do stuff? Why is he always this? Why is he always that? Why is she always this? Why is she always that? Why does she always try and call us out when we lie? Why is she always trying to ask us to tell the truth? Why can't they just let us lie to them? Is essentially what they're saying. Now, for myself, when I compete in a sport where I have gone overseas for it. I have some family overseas in a pretty dangerous position. I was over there. I returned to America and I said, okay, got to get my family over here. Got to get them away from the danger zone. When the first place I hit was on the West Coast, and I was there for a minute, and I was like, okay, it's cool. Like Portland and Seattle are nonviolent, but the sex and the drugs and that kind of stuff is like way out of control. And my family has no kind of immunity built up for that from the land they're coming from. And to be honest, Portland and Seattle are really, really safe places, but for children, they're really not that safe, which is weird because you know, it's so safe in those places, but you know, there's super high child predatory. It's real bad there. So I'm like, all right, I got to figure out a place that's going to be halfway suitable for their sensibilities, where they're not just going to be overwhelmed with stuff they've never seen before. And I think I know about Omaha, Nebraska. I'm going back there. Go back to Omaha, Nebraska. I go to a couple mosques around town and I tell them my story, and I tell them the same thing I tell everyone. I'm like, zakat means charity. And I'm like, hey guys, I need some help. I'm in this situation, but I don't want zakat. All you guys, all you places are promising this stuff to the community, and you're raising money for this stuff, and you're getting like attention from places that are like giving you accolades for what you're supposed to be doing. Hey man, we need to make this stuff real. None of you has ever made it real. I've made this stuff before. Let's work together. Instead of waiting till the very end when you got to hire some non-Muslim to do it for you and you have no idea what kind of job they're going to do because you never bothered to understand the stuff in the first place, hire me. I'll do it better because I can do it better. I'll do it better because I'm directly connected with you guys in this community and I know the ins and outs, and I will go all out for that. And I'll do it cheaper because I care, and I'm not in it to make money. I just want enough to get myself on my feet and get you guys' program started. And I always told them the same thing every time as well. If you work with me on this, I'm not just going to build it for you. You can get your interns, you can get your kids, you can get whoever to hang out with me. They'll see how it's done. And not only can they run it themselves afterwards, they can set these programs up for themselves. You can start to show other mosques how to do this stuff. That's my goal with this stuff. And it just never happened. So I'm going around to places in Omaha. No, we don't know, brother, blah, blah, blah. One African-American brother, he was a real solid guy. He says, you want to go to the AMI, the American Muslim Institute. It's a brand new mosque. It's in conjunction with a church and a synagogue. And they're just all about this stuff, man. They're all about everything that you're talking about. And I agree with you. We need to do this stuff. We need to get on the ball and make this stuff real instead of just, you know, selling people a lie and being like, well, I got enough for me. I'm cool. You know, I have a house. I have the things I need. Well, what about your brother? What about your sister? Do they got what they need? Are they cool? Are they all right? And eventually I wound up at the AMI on the first day of Ramadan. Now, what we're going to start here is things that people have really wanted to know. They wanted to know names. They've wanted to know. They've wanted to know about this, and they wanted me to speak on it. So this, leading into some of the other things we're going to talk about, most of this stuff, first of all the stuff I talk about, I can back up through like emails and phone calls and phone records and logs and all that stuff. So that's you know, that goes without saying. But on top of that, this situation with these people ended up, the police were involved, and every single thing that went through the courts of the police showed that the other side was lying and I was telling the truth. I mean, everything, and we'll get into that. So I finally go out to the AMA. It's the first day of Ramadan, and it's a development where I got there. The synagogue was already done in one place. The mosque just got done, and there was a church being built, and the church was basically being built by the Warren Buffett family, and the Warren Buffett family, it turns out, is who is funding the AMI. I don't know if they funded the synagogue or not, but I know almost all the money for the AMI came directly from the Warren Buffett Foundation, and it was from his family. I think his daughter or his wife or somebody goes to church at that church. So she was just like shoveling money at these people, and they got their mosque built and all this stuff. But it's such a nice, new, pretty building that I go on the first day of Ramadan. I have to beat on the door to try and get into the pray. It's time to pray. It's the first day of Ramadan. It's time to pray. It's Salat. And the door is locked. So I just beat on the door, and finally this lady comes up. I'm kind of hesitant to say her name, but I'm just going to say it because she's involved in it anyway. Saher. She's a really nice lady, Pakistani lady. I think she's a doctor. She's a pretty good leader in her community. People look up to her. For whatever reason, this individual answers the door, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And it's like, "Oh, well, it's time to pray, and it's Ramadan. I'm out here to." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, well, come on in." And while we were talking, you hear this on the door again, and there's this lady out there, and she's like, "Hi, I'm here for I want to learn about Islam classes." And she's just some white lady from the Midwest, I guess, but she's trying to put her hijab on, and she's really taking this seriously. And Saher knew this place a little bit more than me, and she's like, "I'm really sorry. I don't think they're here today. Maybe it was the first day of Ramadan. If you call us, talk, stop back. I'm sure that they'll be able to help you." And she says, "Okay," and leaves. And I got to admit, I got a real funny feeling right off the rip. I'm like, it's Ramadan. There's no activity going on except these sisters have like a CrossFit class going out in the basement or something. It's time to pray. There's no, there's nothing. I'm not smelling any food. I don't know if they're going to have food. But every mosque is supposed to have food, and this is a rich, rich, rich mosque, right? So I start talking to her, like, "Oh, how are you?" And she's with this other young, like Muslim, these are like young, professional, stylish, but they're still down to earth. They'll talk to me, and I'm not going to give them the whole sob story, but I start telling them the situation some, and they're like, "Well, you know what you need to do? You go up to the imam, ask him about some assistance, this, that, and the other. You can at least get a little bit of money coming in. And from there, I've got these other things going on." And right away, Sahara was just like off to the races, like, "How are we going to help this guy out?" I said, "Okay." So I go back, I find the imam, and I'm like, I ask him about this, and he's like, all of a sudden he can't speak English. He's like, he can't understand what I said. And finally I get it, and I know he does, because they chose him because he speaks English, right? Him and his little right-hand man. So finally, I get it to him he's not able to weasel out of it. He's like, "Yeah, but we just don't do that. We only," and I was like, you don't do any of this stuff? What do you do with the money you collect for zakat?" And he's like, "Oh, well, that's for the refugees and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Brother, the refugees get brought here by money. They get settled here with money. Everybody's got money for them. And the money never stops for them. Where's the money for the revert? Where's the money for the convert, man? And instead of just giving us money, where are all the jobs that you guys promised us? Where are these Muslim businessmen that are supposed to be on? Why do we even have to ask you for money? Why don't you have your, I don't lay all that on him, but it's running through my mind. But I'm just dealing with him." And so finally I go back to Sahar and her friend, and she's like, "Yeah, what do you say?" And I was like, "Well, he kind of said that they don't do that here." And they both looked at each other, and she's like, "No, you need to go back in there and tell him what's up. Tell him that I told you that, tell him that you talked to me and you know that he's supposed to do it." So I do that, and then he says, "Okay, we'll come back in a few days. We'll cut the check or something." And when I went back into the room where Sahar and the other woman were at, I hear him talking about the imam, and I'm not going to repeat what they said, but it was basically just like well, what they said was that some kid tried to make azan, and then he runs over and grabs the mic. And azan is the call to prayer. It's the call that you hear before Muslims meet for salat, which is the ritual prayer. And I guess he ran over and grabbed the mic and goes, "What are you trying to do? Are you trying to take my job? This is my job," "Oh, okay, buddy." Didn't know that the youth weren't supposed to leave, give the call to prayer. But so a few days, or actually that day, me and her leave. And this is how good this sister was. She did what I have done before and what I would do when I had the money. She just went to a ATM, put some money in my hand, because they didn't have food. That's the other thing. They were not breaking. They didn't have iftar, which was just disgusting that the richest mosque in town doesn't have food for hungry people during Ramadan. So she's like, "Come on, let's go to the grocery store. We got some dates and things. We just broke fast, her and I." And she's like, here's some money, take this. Because originally her mama had just passed away, and she was going to put me up in her mama's house. And because she's like, well, she's not living there. I don't, I was like, kind of decided that I wasn't really comfortable. And I think the realtor or somebody was like, who, what are you going to have living in there? So she's like, here's some money. I went downtown to like the cheapest place I could find. And it's a Roach Motel, but so what? I could afford it. I got in there, and within like a couple days, I had a job. I immediately got a job because I'm not one of these people like, oh, I'll just sit around and collect money forever, man. I'm trying to make it happen with my rapping, you heard? So I get this job where I'm helping kids, and we'll get into that later too. But another thing, like it's Ramadan, and this Sahara woman had organized a charity drive. Like she got a big container, and she was like, and she knows what she's doing. She's a smart woman. So she's like, don't be bringing your old stuff that you don't want. This isn't a dump off. We need this specific kinds of bags of rice. We need these specific kind of clothing items. We need these specific toiletry items. And she asked me to come. She's like, Saturday's the big day, so let's go out there and do it. And I was like, okay, I'm down. And this is one of the things that I'll admit my personal failing, like the shame for me, is that when that day came, that Saturday, I had enough for two bus trips left. I could either go out there and come back and have nothing, or I could save it when I went back to work. And I should have just got on the bus and trusted that God was going to make sure that I always got what I needed. But I've been, you've been burned so many times, you just start to think, I don't know, man, I'm going to spend everything I got, my last ducats, and I'm going to get out there, and it's going to be a big screw up. And, so to my own shame, I didn't go out there because I was like, I need to keep a couple bullets in the chamber to pay for my bus fare. As shameful as that is for me, what I noticed was I should have never had to do that, because the leaders of the mosque, especially the men, should have been like, every brother who's able-bodied, this sister has got a container. She's dotted all out. This is the exact stuff we need to help people really get on their feet when we're sending this stuff to. We need you guys to show up. We're going to have, for those of you guys who don't have a car, we're going to send out the van. We got people picking you up. We're going to get out here and we're going to make this, like, there was never an announcement or nothing. So because I didn't go out there, I don't even know what happened. I think she did do it, but for all I know, maybe she married some big yoked out Midwestern dude. So big buffed out dude. So maybe, it was like him and her doing the whole thing by themselves, for all I know. But as Ramadan goes on, I'm introduced to this guy, Karim Katani. And it's obvious he's in some sort of position of authority at the AMI, but it's never really clear exactly what he does. He's like in the middle of a lot of stuff, but he never really has a title. Maybe he's on the board of directors or something, but he's not. He's like running a lot of stuff, but he has no title, and nobody really knows how to pin him down like that. And I meet him, and I start talking about some of this stuff, and I'm like, well, you guys, you got to get these programs going on. You can't keep promising this stuff to the public and you don't have it. And he's like, yeah, but it's someone else, and they're not letting me do it, and this, that, and the other. And he's Tunisian, and a bunch of people that are behind the AMI are Tunisian. So there's this other younger guy that I meet there one day, a Tunisian. He and I start talking, and it turns out him and the Karim guy know each other. And he lives down by where I live, where my apartment is downtown, close to the place where I work. So I talk to him a little bit, and we leave that night, and we say, like, we're going to go pray more together, and we'll this and that together. Yeah. So we start going out to the mosque a little bit, and there's another mosque in the downtown area. I call it the poor mosque, because they really ain't got no money. But I tell you what, every time you go in there, there's somebody smiling, and when it's Ramadan, they got food. They might not have no money, but how did those poor people always have food for Ramadan people, huh? So we're going to these prayers during Ramadan. We're kind of bonding, and I'm trying to see if he's somebody that I'm going to be able to work with, and somebody who's going to be about the stuff that he says he's going to be about, or is he just going to be another guy who's like, yeah, I'm into all this and I'm down for this and never do it. And things start happening at the AMI where I start to ask this guy, I'm like, a lot of stuff ain't adding up here, man. A lot of this stuff is just katas, that's what we'll call him, katas, because that's what the name on the police report said anyway. So I'm asking him, like, this stuff ain't adding up. And I'm showing him this stuff, and I'm showing it how it's the same in other countries. Like, I know, man, I know it's the same stuff over and over again. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do about this? And he's like, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I'm going to start looking into the money. Can you start to talk to because I'm not Tunisian. These people are never going to talk to me. Can you get in there and see what's up with those people? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. So I said, okay, I'll start finding out what I can on the outside. You start finding out what you can on the inside. And like, the intention was never to like turn them into the police or anything. The intention was to take it to them and be like, this is where you're screwing up. We're tired of this. We need to sit down and get a new budget and a new board of directors and a new group of people who are actually serious about making this stuff happen. So I finally get a proposal together of how to, like, basically a little media center. Like, it just took a computer and a mic and a few equipment to start doing podcasting and broadcasting and stuff like that. And I present it to them. I'm like, this is something like the kids are learning, because what I'd really try and hit them off with was martial arts. I'd be like, the kids are acting a fool. Everybody knows your wild ass kids won't listen to nobody. How it works in everybody else is they stick the kid into wrestling, boxing, or mixed martial arts, some sort of martial art, to like, that's how you develop the self-discipline in the kid. But they never want to do that. They like their kids are fighting all the time, and they want to be gang members and they're all this stupid stuff, but they don't want to do anything to solve it. So I kind of gave up on asking that. But I was like, okay, this other stuff, it's purely intellectual. It's just talking and reasoning, and what kind of research can you bring to, and you don't even have to talk about it. You could just do it all about Islam if you wanted. Every podcast could be a Islamic podcast, but at least you're in the game, and now your voice is being heard. You're empowering the other people who are putting their voices out, and you're actually doing something with the money you're getting instead of it just going who knows where. So I get this full proposal together, and me and that guy go out to the AMI. Katas go out to the AMI. There's a special speaker there that night, Brother Jihad, and this guy is I think he was half born and bred Muslim, half American, but for a while he just lived like, he didn't live like a Muslim. And I believe Sahar is who brought him out to speak, because this guy goes all over the place and speaks. He's got a brilliant mind, and he really understands better than most people how to meld and how to balance Islamic values and code of ethics with the modern secular world. He's brilliant at that. And I was really looking forward to this, his presentation. And I know Sahara was like, she was really pumping people. I'm like, you got to come out. You got to check him out. So we get out there, and there's almost nobody comes to see this guy, but whatever. I'll see him. I'm down. And it's supposed to be like a 2-hour-long program, and then there's all this other stuff going on. It ended up being like 5 minutes, because Kareem and the rest of the bozos blew it. And now that I look at it, of course, I believe it was intentional. I don't think that how do you take a guy who's supposed to have it's supposed to be his evening, and you end up putting him on for like 5 minutes. And out of that 5 minutes, it's just Kareem sitting there on the computer trying to pull out the point presentation, PowerPoint like graphics behind him, and he can't do that. And like it was a wash. Nothing really happened with that, and I felt bad. But I cornered that Kareem guy. Me and Katas got him. This conversation I'm going to tell you right now took place in the middle of the main entrance to the mosque, with everybody, like people were coming and going. This was not no back room, nothing. It took place right there. I put out my proposal. I said, this is what it is. I'm already good to go. The only thing I need is a small budget. And Kareem, you claim that you're the man with all these business connections with the Muslim business people. I need you to be able to like go up to bat for me and get those people to at least hear me out. And Brother Jihad knew how to like form everything verbally the correct way, so Kareem couldn't weasel out of it. And every time we tried to bring something up, like he was just like, no. He didn't want to do it. And finally, I'm like, okay, fine. Forget about the money. Forget about I need a computer though, because the stuff can't happen without a computer. And he's like, well, I have an old iMac, or I have an old Mac laptop. All I got to do is wipe it and get it to you. And I was like, okay, that works. I don't care. You don't have to buy a new one. If it still works, great. It'll work. And I remember seeing Sahara. We were all in a circle, and Sahara's off to the side, like she's halfway texting on her phone. She's halfway listening to us. She's basically just like, she's probably got a more nicer, elegant way to say it, but she's basically just like, all right, you guys, you're finally getting it together. She's already had her stuff together. So at one point we make an agreement for the guy. I'm going to meet him at on Monday or something. And he's going to, after he takes his family to the airport, and he's going to have the computer, and we're going to sit down and talk about this stuff. And I remember Sahara's like, okay, Monday, great. And she don't even look up. She's just sitting there texting the whole time, you know. So Monday rolls around, and long story short, between Monday and Friday, every time I would talk to the guy, he'd be like, oh, brother, but wait, brother, but there's this one other thing. I don't think I can meet today, but let's definitely meet tomorrow, and I will have this, and I will have that, and Rama Lama Ding Dong. Okay. So we keep going until finally we get to Friday. And I told him before, like, he knows I can't get it way out to that place because they took that new AMI. It's out there in like the most inaccessible place. It's not something that your average, you know, civilian is just going to be able to just walk over to. They put it way out there where they could avoid the riffraff, I imagine. But, you know, it's way out there in this deep into the suburbs. So,
and let me ask you: are the campuses the same for the synagogue, the church, and the mosque, or different places?
They're different buildings, but they're all about the same quality. There's also a community center now. I haven't seen the community center, but it's all like brand new built, really, really well built stuff, or at least really expensively built stuff. And at least in the mosque's case, and maybe the church, all that money pretty much came from the Buffetts. So finally Friday rolls around, and he's like, he already knew that I can't get out there. He's like, okay, so, but yeah, that's great. We can meet up. Can you come out here and pick it up? And right away, like, I know it's been going on for a week. I know he's just never going to do it at this point. So I'm like, well, you already knew that I work on Fridays and I can't get out there even if I wanted to. He's like, okay. Well, then let's do it tomorrow. Let's do it on tomorrow because I'm going to be out of town and I'll be back tomorrow. And I'm like, great. Okay, tomorrow, whatever. Actually, I've got this thing. And, you know, Sunday, we could really meet up Sunday strong. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever, Sunday. You know, Monday's going to be the day because I've got this other TV I can get it to you. And I was like, Monday, cool. And click, I just hung up on him because he's never going to do any of this stuff, right? Like, that's the simpleton liar crooks that you got to deal with these born and bred Muslims. And some people are going to, oh, no, don't talk about the born and bred Muslim. Let me tell everybody out there, before you jump up with your stupid racist comments, what race are Muslims? You tell me. Because the Caucasus Mountains is supposed to be where the whitest white people in the world come from. Those are where some real hard suffering Muslims live because they got to deal with Russian military, and them guys ain't nothing nice. So I'm not talking about racism here. I'm talking about a bunch of bums that refuse to live by their own rules. Maybe you guys don't understand it, but you don't need to. Because A, when I tell you this stuff, you're like, oh, well, that sounds right at least. I like the sound of that. And B, what you need to know is it's already in Islam. That's what we're supposed to be doing. They're doing the opposite. So I know that this guy's a ripoff at this point. He's not, you know, like I've just got this feeling that this is just another scam. It's just another scam. So I keep looking and I find that I'm not going to say how, but I'll make these documents available. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but there's gonna be a link. It might take a couple of days to get everything put together, correlated and whatnot, but there's gonna be a link with a bunch of documents and whatever else evidence-wise that you guys want to check out so you can see if I'm telling the truth or not. About partway through Ramadan, this stuff's going on, and I'm realizing that it's really rotten here. So I do what I got to do. I talk to this person who knows how to do a few things, and I get these papers straight from the internet that are showing how much money the AMI has gotten and from whom. It was incomplete. It didn't show all of them. But in less than a year, because the place hadn't been open in a year, the AMI had, like, conservatively, just the papers that I have show something like $11 million. But when you look into all the other stuff, like when we kept looking into it, it looked like it was over $21 million. $21 million that none of these people raised on their own. They're a bunch of Tunisian or whatever they are from wherever else scam artists who have had this scam pumping around for probably a decade plus, and they think finally got these soft white people. It's the Buffetts. They got all the money in the world. They're going to fund everything. And because these are lazy lowlifes, they just take that money and they think they're ripping off the Buffetts, but they didn't know what the Buffetts had behind that. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But I can see right now that the money is totally not adding up at this point. The last day of of Ramadan. Well, like Ramadan ends and then there's Eid. Eid is the day that everybody shows up. It's the big celebration after Ramadan. Kareem gets on the microphone and he says, brothers, you've got to dig deep. You've got to give the money because we don't have the money. I don't even know if we're going to have money for power next month. We absolutely need the community to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you buster. I already looked at this stuff. You had $20+ million at your disposal and you didn't keep 1 year's worth of an annual operational budget. And I looked at the building they built. It ain't, you know, it ain't worth what they say it's worth. Where's the money going? We get out. There's a celebration a little while after that at the synagogue. So me and this guy go out there with the intention we're going to confront Kareem with some of this stuff. And of course, like we split up, and I never see Kareem. And this guy comes, oh, did you see him? No, I didn't see him. Cut ass found him, but I didn't see him. But at one point, I'm sitting there under one of the tents eating some good old kosher hot dogs. And it's a group of Muslim elders there. And they're like, look at this. The synagogue. Look at this place. It's so clean. It's so orderly. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. Everything looks great. What's the problem at the mosque? And when I hear the elders say that, I'm like, yeah, it definitely ain't. Because, like, these are old school Muslim elders, like for them to be open, and they weren't like jumping up grandstanding about it, but for them to be piping off like that publicly and not caring really who hears, that's saying something, because that's not their way, The younger ones will flip and flop and yell and scream, but the older ones, even though they might get up on some bullshucks too, at least they've got a little bit of that old school dignity where they don't want to just put everything messy out there, And for them to say that, I was like, something is really real going on. And also when the thing went down with the computer and all that stuff, and he wasn't going to give it up, and I went and talked to Kadas. Kadas is like, well, let me call him because I speak Tunisian. We'll see what's up. And I noticed though that when he called him, he went outside of the room. So I don't know what was said, but I wouldn't know anyway because it's in Tunisian. But it's just interesting that he didn't want it said in front of me. But when he comes back, he's got this serious look on his face. I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, he was never going to do it. I can tell you right now. He just had all these excuses, and I, when I would ask him, none of them made sense, and he was just lying. He was saying stupid, like childish lies. He was never going to do it, man. I said, I know. So now we got to get serious because this is fraud. They're not feeding people during Ramadan. They're not having those classes to help the new Muslims become Muslim, or at least like help educate them about it. They're not even open for prayer. We don't know where the money's going. He's begging for more money, saying it's all gone. On and on and on. There's like, when we put up these documents, you'll be able to see a lot of the other stuff. It's just like a mountain of this stuff. So there's no denying at this point that what's going on out there is triple foul, super duper triple foul. And this guy is supposed to be Mr. Inside and I'm Mr. Outside. And we keep meeting, and I keep telling him my stuff, and he's like, I didn't know. I didn't find anything out yet. They wouldn't talk to me. And eventually it becomes clear that he's just juicing me for, info that he can go back and tell those people. Because on the one hand, like he's not stupid. He knows what's right. And we'll get into more later of how our situation, but he knows what's right. He knows that it's fraud going on out there. And for a split second, he'll be like, yes, we must confront that because it's wrong. But then he settles back into his Arab Berber ways. And he's like, oh, well, these are my peoples, they're not, we always do it this way. Why is this guy complaining? And, eventually I realized he's working against me. He's not really trying to, he ain't never bringing up no information, but he's always sure wants to know my information. I was living in the Roach Motel. And at one point, okay, here you go. So I'm living in the Roach Motel, and he comes by to pick me up one day during Ramadan. We go out and fast or whatever. I'm out front. I'm like, hold up, I got to run inside, grab something. I'll be right back. He says, okay. I come out, and he's got like this ashen look on it. He looks like he's about to throw up, man. And I'm like, what's going on? Let's go. And he's like, he's just like, and he's frozen. I'm like, what's the matter, man? What's the deal? And he points over, he's like, those bikers said I touched their bikes. And there's all these motorcycles lined up right in front of my Roach Motel. And across the street, there's just like a horde of bikers trucking across the street, heading straight for us. I'm like, oh boy. I said, did you do it? Did you touch the bike? He's like, no way, never. So I just like, bam, I just go like straight approach to the head lead biker. And I'm like, what's up, man? The brothers here says that there was some misunderstanding about messing with his bike, with your bike. I could tell you he didn't mean no disrespect like that. It wasn't, if there's any kind of misunderstanding, we apologize. But, you're not just going to run up on him. And I mean, these guys are like super deep, but I'm like, nobody's just running up on him. So let's not even go that route. That's because whatever it was, an accident. And I'm not saying these guys are punks at all, but their leader, I guess, was like kind of rational about stuff. And he's like, no, that dude touched my bike. I just saw him do it. That's why we got a problem. And I turn around to him. I'm like, you told me you didn't touch his bike. Did you touch his bike? He's like, well, yes, I just kind of vroom the little handle, because who wouldn't do that when they're standing right by the bike? I'm like, shut up, man. I just had him stop talking right there. And I turn around to the guys. I go, you're welcome to park here whenever you want. As long as I'm around, you don't have to worry about nobody messing with your bike, because I'll get involved. And I apologize that, you were right. This guy just lied right in front of all of us. I apologize. And the biker dapped me up, and that was it. And, after that, I'm kind of fuming at the guy, but we've already got all this stuff. We're in the middle of like investigating this and that, or we're supposed to be. So I'm just like, hey, let it roll, because there's supposed to be bigger fish to fry. But that was a real keen insight right there into what kind of dude this was. So he's picking me up. We're going around. We're pseudo investigating, I guess, because I'm the one who's looking into all this stuff, and he's just kind of like, giving me the okie doke. But where I was working at, and this is another thing people really wanted me to name names on, so we're going to name some names right now. The place that I got a job right away was the downtown YMCA, run by Brandon Bruger. Nobody liked him, really. The people that mattered didn't like him, and everybody kind of knew that he's just some bozo white dude that got brought in because he's supposed to raise a bunch of money and get him this new building or whatever. So, but the way he wasn't really raising money, he was just like chopping off services and things that like looked like it was saving money on the budget, but it was really like kind of running the place into the ground. There was a female who asked me, she was a lifeguard there. I was going in there training because I'm going to get ready for a fight. Cool, work is good. African-American female. And she's like, you know what? You should get a job here. They're hiring. I was like, well, it'd be a dream job because I get paid, but I could also go use the facilities, get my workout on, everything. She's like, you need to apply, man. Trust me. So I went and applied, got the job, started working there. And that guy would come in there every day. He'd come in to work out, or he'd come in to use the pool or whatever. He'd come in every now and then because like the Y was basically in between where I lived and where he lived. And before we get all back into the Muslim stuff, I'm just going to put the stuff about the Y out here real quick. Somebody told me when I first started working there, they were like, in addition to the fact that like the pool is like it's like the star of the show there. It was never supposed to be closed. It's where it's like the biggest deal there is the pool. So it's like it gets a lot of attention there. And then plus during the day, during the summer, for like 3 or 4 hours in a row, different classes of kids come down for their day camp. And that's their favorite thing, is to jump in the pool and splash around for a half hour or whatever. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that a bunch of these kids, like the people at the YMCA, they got a lot of extra money to help out, because a bunch of those kids had like really, I didn't know it at the time, but you could tell, but like nobody told me, but some of them had like really severe issues, and this is coming from like abuse and who knows whatever they've been through, So I'm in the pool, so I'm interacting with these kids pretty much all the time. And eventually it'd be like, I start becoming like their security guy or whatever, because every time there's like these rowdy, especially black kids, these are the people in positions of power, almost all white people in their 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, college educated. They got all these degrees, but they don't know how to relate to these kids at all. It's all like minorities and people of color and female, whoever, just like running with the kids, because these adults with all their fancy degrees can't deal with these kids that they're getting all the money to deal with them for. So This African-American woman tells me one time, she's like, you ever notice that there's some really weird stuff that goes on here? Like really weird? And I was like, yeah, kind of, but what do you, and she started to talk about some of this weird, like kind of sex stuff that was not really open, but there was just weird stuff. And I was like, I see it, but I'm new enough here that I haven't seen enough to really put it together. And she's like, just keep your eyes open and keep watching for this stuff, and you'll see it. And over time, I really did start to see it. And this one time, I felt bad because it's kind of like the thing with the me not leaving the sister hanging on the container thing. This one time, somebody, and it had to have happened when after hours and the place was closed, had done, let's just say, something really inappropriate with some of the equipment in the pool area, and it was like very violently sexual in nature. And when that woman arrived, she had to like deal with it. So she was kind of shaken up, and she talked to me. I was like, well, maybe it was some of these badass kids. I don't know. I wasn't minimizing what she was saying, but I was trying to help her not feel freaked out about it. I was just like, yeah, and I wish I wouldn't have did that. I wish I would have right away said, you know what, this is so freaking inappropriate. This is crazy, because it was wild, man. And I was like, we do need to take this to somebody right now. And, but I will admit right there, I did fail that time, because I was too new to the situation, but I knew she was right. And I knew what I saw, but I was just new enough that I didn't know exactly how to put it together. As the thing goes on, there's more and more of that stuff going on. And it gets to a point one day where, like, towards the end of the deal, because the kids would come through, and like, it's the youngest group, and the next group, and the next group, and the next group. And man, I love all these little kids, and they love me, and it's like the happiest thing. They just get to come in there and run around, and all I have to do is sit there and make sure they're safe. I play with them a little bit. I just tweak the whistle and make sure that they're not doing nothing dangerous. Sometimes I'm like a camp counselor practically. I get in there and I play with them because they're, lifeguard, get in here. And then I'm more fun than their camp counselors, because most of the camp counselors didn't really care, But towards the end, things start getting really loose. And at one point, like, the guy camp counselors aren't even showing up, kind of. And there's this one big guy there, all muscle-bound dude, young college guy. And this one day, something happens where there's like a breakdown with there's not enough people or something. And pretty soon, like, the kids are getting stuck, like different groups of them are stuck in one side of the pool, and you're in the hallway, and here you're in the locker room. And pretty soon, like the staff, the management of the whole facility is like, what's going on, Eli? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm supposed to run the pool. That's all I'm supposed to do. And they started to rely on me before, because every time there was like a problem with, like I said, especially African-American kids, I'll call it racism, but everybody else can call it whatever they want. They would be really hard on them, and they would want to kick them out right away all the time, but they were scared to do it to them for a number of reasons. So when they saw that I wasn't scared, they would have me do it. But what they didn't realize was that most of the time, it was almost nobody never kicked anybody out. And like, I remember, like, the baddest group of the black kids that you could tell they despise these kids, man. And these are just like young, good, energetic, like young teens. And maybe a little before that, they're just like these kids that got so much energy, but they're not bad, They're rowdy, they're wild. If you don't know how to handle them, they're going to run riot, but they're not mean or bad. And those kids that they wanted to kick out all the time, and they were trying to get me to kick out, the first time I was in there with them, all I had to do was set some boundaries and show them that I cared about them and that I could speak their language. And there was no issue after that. By the end of that night, when it was time to go, they were diving into the pool to get the toys out that the other kids had left at the bottom. That's the bad kids that they wanted me to throw out for them, right? Because there's a lot of racism going on there. So it gets to a point where I'm now like kind of like they hire a new manager, some goofball. Like, I'm really the manager though. I'm doing all the work. I'm running the lessons. And I don't care, because I'm going to get to train, to get in shape and get a fight. But I really like what I'm doing, because I can see that it's not just like I'm the lifeguard. That's good enough on its own, helping people or helping kids. But some of these kids had heavy duty issues, and nobody knew how to help them. Nobody there could relate to them, but I could. And that's the way it's been for me for a long time. So it gets to that day where everything just breaks down, and the staff starts running around like, what's going on? I don't know. I tell them, so I just like, okay, pool's closed for a minute. Bam, I shut the door. I tell the kids, you guys wait here at the side. You guys in the hallway, you wait here. I'm going back to the locker room to see what's going on. I go into the locker room, and it's like, you remember those videos? Remember that thing called the Harlem Shake, where everything would be normal and then it would split to something else, and there's like just total pandemonium on the video?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like in there without the calm before. It was just like complete madness in there. And I look at the one. There's one of the little boys, and he was like not a bad kid. He was just kind of like, none of them were really bad, but he wasn't at all, And he stuffed himself into, like, how there's those tall lockers and then there's the ones that are twos. He's small enough that he stuffed himself into the bottom one.
Oh wow!
And that the big muscle bound guy, the counselor, is just screaming at him like, "Get out of there!" And the kid's in there crying, like he's like not even making sense when he's talking. You don't know what to say. And there's like nude kids running around the shower, and there's all this. I was like, when I saw him screaming at them, I was like, "Hey, go out there. Go back up to where your day camp is. Do whatever you got to do because they need the people. I'll take care of this. You kids in the shower, quit screwing around. Hurry up. Get yourself washed up. Get your clothes on. The next one of you get right behind them. What are you doing in there, young stunner? Get out of the little that cubby hole, that locker. Talk to me, man. What's going on?" And like, get him calmed down. He ain't crying no more. But I seen in that instant that there was so little concern and control exerted in regards to the care of the children on the surface that I knew that under the surface stuff was true. So I started to confront people and I started to say things, and I'm like, look, man, everybody knows what's going on here. And because certain people are on staff and you want to keep your job or whatever, you don't rock the boat. But me, how come I'm part-time, but you guys did your little waiver thing, so now you're working me like 40 plus hours a week, and I had to waiver away my stuff. But I know that these kids need me. So I show up here every day to do this, and I know I need that job where I can go down there and train and get ready for a fight. So I deal with it. But it's too far out of bounds. Like, there's serious laws being broken here. And that Brandon Bruger guy, I could see him start to change at me, because before he's like, I got this guy here who can keep the darkies in line for me. I'm scared of him, but he speaks their language, so I'll just go get Eli. And I'm like, yeah, you go get me to tell him to be good, and I'm not kicking him out. You kick him out if you want him out, you racist. And on one of the last days, finally, it was like the big end day where, like, I think the parents were even coming and stuff, and they had all made these floats out of these cardboard boxes, and they were going to bring them into the pool and have like regatta races in them or something. And the kids come in there and they're all just like streaming, crying and freaking out, like totally freaking out. And I'm like, what's going on, man? What is it with you guys? And they can't even talk. And finally I get the one little guy. I'm like, what's going on? They fired teachers, counselor so-and-so. And what they had done was, there was this African-American girl. She's like 18 or 19, like just out of high school. She's the only other one like myself who could really reach the kids who had and she was actually, like, I'm a lifeguard. She was off into doing the camp counseling stuff, right? She's the only one who could reach those kids, black, white, whatever. And this girl is African-American. And everybody in the place loves her. She's like the most beautiful girl, not just because she's so fine, like outside, but the things that make her beautiful, at least to me, what I could see is when she's so nice to the kids, and this kid is like, they don't know what to do, and she just comes over in her nice way, just like calms them down and makes it better for them and helps them, process it, whatever it is, and deal with it. And eventually, put it this way, she's so fine, me and her kind of liked each other, and, like traded phone numbers or emails or something. And I think I might have called her or emailed her or something, but I never even pushed up on it. I never followed up on it, as I didn't really care. She is so beautiful that just the fact that she was down to be like, yeah, dude, let's hang out. I was like, well, that's good enough for me. I must be doing something right. Because there's a lot of fine people out in the world, but when you see somebody who can and will stop what they're doing and make a difference in a child, man, you could be the ugliest person in the world, and that person is going to look radiant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they all come in and they're crying, and they said that she got fired. And I'm like, how did they fire the best person they got on the last day when it mattered the most? They've seen all these other breakdowns. They've seen things, that it was criminal. There's stuff in there that those people should have all been arrested for, especially when you think about the fact that it was children involved and how much grant money and all this stuff they had gotten. criminal, man. And I found out that one of the kids had made the accusation about her. So, like, it was something that was so lame, nobody would have ever taken it seriously. But these people, they fired that little girl. They fired her for what they said was threatening a child, so that goes on her record now. They took the best person that they had, the only one who could truly connect with the children, especially the ones that were the hardest to reach. And that's how they did her, man. And that was the final straw for me. I was like, I'm out of here. And I said I was going to transfer over to the North Omaha one. And then what that original woman had told me, she's like, wait till you get over to North Omaha, because the stuff that's going on here, it's just open over there.
Wow.
They're just like, like you're going to have to deal with it, because they're going to try and check you and be like, look at that. Ooh, look at her. What you want to do with her? But she's only like 14, 15, 16 years old. And I was like, you know what? I come from over there myself. I got on some more sophisticated gangster shit that this town couldn't handle. We have to censor that one out. But so, like I'm not tripping off of that at all. I'm waiting for the first person to try and tell me what we're going to do to some 16-year-old girl, because that person is going to be exiting, like face first out of the pool that I'm supposed to be lifeguarding. Freaking lifeguard. That includes no pedophilia. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I go over to North. It's like the day before my birthday. I go over to North. I'm like, all right, man, I'm here to get, they're all super excited, because like most of the kids that were coming for the lessons to the downtown one are all North O kids anyway. So like everybody's like, we got the best lifeguard, the best teacher. The kids love him. He's about his business. Nobody fools around with him. He's coming out here. He really cares about the kids, and they really learn how to swim. Man, this is it. And I go and I talk to the woman, and she's like, yeah. And then she starts typing on the computer. She's like, oh yeah, what's this? I can't hire you. I'm like, what do you mean you can't hire me? Brandon Brugger put it on here that you're fired and that nobody should hire you. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, it says you were insubordination or something like that. And I'm like, do you believe that? Because this whole time, all my results prove something else. And she's like, yeah, it's messed up, because everybody knows you're like the best out of all of them. And that's why we were so happy to have you here. And I'm like, well, what is it? Do you want me here then? Or do you, and like other people, like some of the African-American people out there that I knew from the other YMCA, they're like stunned when I tell them this. They're very upset. And this woman goes, I'll tell you what, just go down there and talk to that Brandon Brugger, straighten it out or whatever, because we want you here and we'll hire you. I said, okay. So I go back down there. I talk to Brandon Brugger, and it turns out him and his little buddy there they just concocted some stuff to get me fired, because I wouldn't shut up about the way they were running the camp. And I wouldn't shut up about the way they were treating the kids that came in for lessons. It was total racism. And like with the camp kids, it was even worse. There was criminal stuff going on. So he gives me this line about he's firing me because of this, and I didn't show up at this time. And I'm like, really? Because I just talked to Michaela, or whatever her name was. I'm like, she showed me the text that you sent her. You're lying. You're lied to her, and you're lying to me right now, and you're lying in front of your pool supervisor. And he's like, well, be that as it may or whatever, you're fired. So I got up and left. And how that also plays in, that is just another instance to let you know how real this stuff is. Like it's going to sound like I'm constantly embroiled in all this stuff, and some of it is, but that's mainly because I don't shut my eyes off to it, and I will stand up to it. You don't have to be a superhero, a super sleuth, a super investigator to get involved in this stuff. It's so prevalent that I'm pretty sure most people out there have been in instances where they're like, I wish I would have stood up. I wish I would have did something. I wish I would have said something, because I know it wasn't right, but I just didn't know what to do. Always err on the side of caution for children. That's that's how I'd ratio it out. But
yeah.
So this guy, cut ass, he's coming over to that YMCA and working out with me there. Because, like I'm training him, and I'm training for a fight, and he thinks it's cool or whatever. And he says, hey man, you're in the Roach Motel. I got that nice studio apartment over there. I'm going out of town for a week. Why don't you watch my place for me? I said, yeah, I'm cool with that. And I had a homie who was moving into a house at that time. And I'm like, well, because I'm just waiting for the homie to move into the house, and he's going to rent a room to me there, and I'll be out of the Roach Motel. And he's like, when's that? I told him like in a month or so. He said, well, just stay at my house until then, pay me some rent and it'll be all good. I said, okay. While we were there, a situation happened where his work visa or whatever that he earned, he had basically had something hooked up to the college where he would get the money from working to pay for his, his bills and his living expenses. That got cut off. So he's all panicking, he's desperate, and you don't know what to do. I'm like, look, if you calm down, we'll figure out a way. If you wild out, what's it going to do? He's like, yeah, okay. So he starts talking about how, like, because the AMI didn't really feed people during Ramadan, only on like Saturday, Friday, or Sunday or something, because like Monday through Friday they're rich. So these people are like, well, we just go home, we don't care. Like, Ramadan food is, yes, it's true, it's community and you eat together and it's supposed to be good like that, but that's not the main point. Ramadan food is for people, anybody, including non-Muslims, who are hungry and you need something to eat. You need a healthy meal. You need a hot one. You need to go in there and see somebody that smiles and gives you a plate of food that looks like they care about you, man. That's what it's supposed to be for. Not so they can show up with their super fancy freaking caterings on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to try and impress all the rich people that they brought out to their stupid mosque that they isolated out in the freaking suburbs. That's what it's supposed to be for. When you're hungry and you need to keep your health up, you go and you get food, spiritual and physical nourishment. That's what that's supposed to be for. So we can see they ain't doing that. It's just, who knows where that money went to. But, the other thing is the Kareem guy that I mentioned before, what it turns out is he's presented to me as like this guy who's just there. He doesn't really want to be, but he has to help out because the other people don't know what they're doing and whatnot. Then it turns on that he's actually the money man. He's the dude behind the money. He's the guy who controls and like figures out, what to do with the money. But it's all unofficial because he really doesn't want to do it. He's just trying to step away, just doing it because nobody. When I looked on him just before we got online, just to see what was what with him, last year he was elected the president of the AMI. So much for like, I'm not really in this for any personal gain. I'm just here trying to like do it until the real people get up here to do it because I'm so busy with the rest of my life, right? Same thing we always see. So me and this guy are in this apartment, and I can tell he's all bummed out. So, and he says, when they would bring that catering out, because it looked all fancy, it would be like, this lady pulls up with like the whole like metal trays and the candles on them and blah blah blah. He's like, I know that they paid good money for that, and I know that there's not hardly any Tunisian food around here, and you've tasted my Tunisian food when I make it. It's really good, and I admit it's delicious. So he's like, what do I do? How do I get a catering gig? Because I think he thought A, he could do it, and B, he thought maybe the lady was like getting paid unofficially, so he thought it's a way. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do nothing to help you get paid off the books. You can go out and get yourself a green card and fight it, thug it like every other Mexican if that's what you want to do. But if you're serious about the stuff that you're trying to do right now, I have a connection downtown with a female who runs the chef's pop. She basically was running the pop-up shop behind this chef's collective that would show up like every Friday and have like a featuring new chef. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It was something that I haven't seen out in Seattle or Portland either, and they're supposed to be big food cart places. This lady was just like, I don't know if she had the vision and the ability to get all these herd the cats together to get all these artistic people to actually produce. But I told him, I'm like, I'll go down there and talk to her and see if I could get you featured in one of those pop-ups. You could do that, man? I said, I don't know if I can do it, but I can ask her. The thing is, two things. One, you have to take this super serious because this is my name on the line. If I do this for you, you can't leave me hanging. I met this woman at what she does. Like, so it's like, my name's on the line. Yeah. You know it. Of course. I said, the other thing is she's really pretty and she's got this really cool style, but you cannot hit on her. You can't take it to anything like that. Because like when I talked to her, I honestly got the impression that one of the reasons she liked talking to me was because I never hit on her and I didn't care about that. Like I just assumed she had somebody else and I don't care. Like I don't hit on women like that. I'm going to talk to you like a human being. And when we part ways, you'll walk away thinking, oh, I could talk to him again because he's just like, whatever. And I was trying to tell him, like, you cannot hit on the field. Like, I know how you guys are, but this is not the time, dude. You're going to mess a bunch of stuff up if you do. Okay. So we make this agreement that I'm going to go down there and talk to her. And I do that. And I come back and I said, she said that she's willing to take an email from you, meet you, try some of the food. And if it stacks up, she says she'll do this for you. So we needed a venue then at that point, or some kind of event or something other than just looking cheesy and saying, hey, come over to my condo or my studio and try my food. You ask anybody who knows me, when I was a kid, it was all live, but nowadays I'm not into birthday parties. All I want to do is kick back with a few people on my birthday that I really enjoy being around, watch some movies, eat some good food, hang out. That's like birthday status to me. I don't do parties or anything like that. I don't, maybe I'll go to somebody else's a little bit, but for me, nah. Want it real small. Don't even want people to know, really. But because this guy needs something, he needs a way to showcase his food. We say, okay, there's this little hot hipster bar over here. I'll go over and talk to them. Like, I kind of got it in with them. I'll tell them it's my birthday and that you're going to come through and that we're going to have some people and this and that. And that should be a way that what I told him was like, you won't be able to make money off of this one, but if your food is good and the money that's there gets raised for charity, because that's what I told him, like, we'll take whatever money comes off of this and we'll give it to charity the first time here. So I was like, maybe you're not going to make money this first time, but when people try your food, which is delicious and very unique, and they see that you're raising this money for charity, it's not going to be hard to get people to, like, cover your rent or whatever for a few months until your visa gets kicked back on. Because I'm not going to help you, like, violate this stuff and put me in trouble, but this will actually get you farther ahead in the long run and possibly the short run too. Because what was that little, grab bag of cash going to get you there, except people asking, did you pay taxes on that? Are you legal to do it? And he seemed like he kind of got it. So I give him some money for it. Like, he way overcharges me on what he's going to do. And I know he's overcharging me. But at the time, I'm like, I'm the only one. He don't got a job. I got a job. And I'm trying to help the dude get into a position where he's not going to, if worse comes to worse, he won't be out on the streets, right?
Yeah.
So I go back and I talk to homegirl. I run all this by her. He's already agreed to all this. He wants to do it. I don't even really want to do it, but we'll do it because it'll help homie. She's down. All he has to do is I typed him out a template letter. I'm like, just change whatever few words that are right to make it for exactly what you want and send her the letter. He says, okay. I'm like, but you got to send it today. Don't say, because this is like Monday or something. I'm like, I think my birthday is on a Friday. I'm like, don't wait until the night before because she's not going to show up, or maybe she would, but I wouldn't even, I wouldn't take you seriously if you waited till the night before. And as the week goes on, he's like, I'm asking him and he's not doing it. Finally, I'm like, what's going on, man? Like, we had an agreement. It's my face that's on the line to this person. And first he gets this happy look on his face. He's like, I didn't tell you, brother. Yeah, man, they turned my visa back on. I'm legal to do this and that now. I'm like, well, that's great. But did you consider this other stuff with me? He's like, well, I don't need to do it now. And I was like, you do need to do it because I paid you to do it. So you're going to do it, for one. And for two, these other people are waiting to show up for this special meal. Like, I don't even care about this. I was going to ditch you on my birthday and go do my own thing. But you have to do this. And I was like, okay. I don't know. He thought he was just going to take the money and keep it or something and not ever produce. So he says, all right. The time comes for the birthday party. I barely invite anybody, but a few people show up, and I'm there watching the Raiders game, and it's 20 minutes late, 30 minutes late, hour late. He rolls in like an hour and 45 minutes late. Everybody's gone. And he's like, hey, what's going on, man? And I'm like, well, you never got a hold of homegirl, so she never showed up. The other people who I invited here to come chase your special stupid food, the food never arrived, so they told me happy birthday and bounced out. It's pretty much a wrap at this point, but I'm trying to be cool about it. It's my birthday. I'm not trying to get all verklempt about this stuff. And he starts acting all stupid, and he's like drinking, and he can't really handle his liquor, so he's just being dumb. And I'm like, look, man, I'm a head home, I think, because the only reason I was here was to help you out. Really, you can drop me off because you got a car. I'll take, because there's a bunch of food left. I was giving it to like people who work there, giving it away to anybody who wanted it, And there's a bunch of food left, and I'm like, hey man, I'll take that over the weekend. I got to come back and pick up a few more things at your house on Monday, and I'll share that food with my homies here. They never had it before, and then I'll bring you the dishes back on Monday. He's like, what? No, man, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I paid for all this stuff. No, that's a special glass dish. I was like, I know. And I know that's why you charged me more money. You didn't need it. You charged me this extra money. You know the position I'm in, and you still juiced me for that little bit of, your fancy glass cookware.
The glassware.
So I bought that. Yeah. And I'm like, I bought that. Drop me off at the homies. I'll take it in there. And no, man, what are you talking about? It's too expensive. And he just starts like whining and whining. Finally, I was just like, all right. And I just got up and I walked off, and I just left him there. And I'm not trying to have what was left of my birthday blown by this idiot. Monday, I go to pick up my stuff at his house, and he's like, what are you doing? What was all that? What happened? And I'm like, I'm trying to be cool about it. And finally, I'm like, listen, man. And I just like broke down everything about how, going back to how he said he needed help, and I helped him out, and how he screwed me over with the homegirl, making me look bad in front of that, and how he overcharged me on the stuff, and how he showed up late, and he had already been drinking, and blah, blah, blah. And he's kind of like, these are real arrogant people, but he's also, I'm so in the right that he's having to just kind of sit there and take it. And he's trying to fire back off every now and then something. And finally, I said something to him, and this will come into play later. I'm like, listen, man, because he made some comment about like he was late because of a girl or something like that. And I was like, listen, I don't know what you came to my country for, to actually learn and improve your life, or if you're here to chase white girls. Because what it looks like to me is that you're just like the rest of these guys. You're in this constant game of like, you guys don't even hardly do your work that you're supposed to do here. You're just chasing white women all the time. And here you are telling me that you couldn't honor your agreement to me, your Muslim brother, who paid for you to be able to show your skills when you were worried how you were going to pay your rent. And you leave me hanging, and you tell me once again it's so you can chase some white girl around. It's disgusting, man. I just tell these girls, especially like all the American girls or European girls, especially the white ones, what are you doing? Do you ever see these guys marrying you? Do you ever see these guys introducing you to their parents? They brag to their friends that they're beating the brakes off of some American white girl. You get used and abused, and then you get dumped. Wise up. You want to learn about Arabic culture? Forget it. Arabic culture is garbage. It says it right in Quran. It says it twice. Oh, you desert Arabs, you're the worst people on earth. Look how when you get the good news of a baby daughter is born, your face grows cold and ashy, and you bury her alive in the desert sand. You're the worst in the world, Arabs. You desert Arabs. It says it twice in Quran. So you guys ask yourself, who do you want to be around when you're running around with these people? Because an Arab man or woman is the last type of person you want to be hanging out with. If they're a Muslim, they're supposed to be among the best. But now we see, and we'll get into this later too, how the religion has been, or the interpretations of the religion have been diluted and intentionally manipulated and mutilated to allow for the most haram things. We'll give a couple examples right now, because people are like, well, what do you mean? And some people are like, yeah, I know what you mean, and I want to hear them examples. So we'll just kick it out in the open. First of all, in Islam, female genital mutilation is haram. And remember, haram is completely illegal. There's no way, that it's legal at all. Haram, completely. Forced marriages, completely haram. Completely illegal, completely forbidden. Absolutely. It states clearly how she has her rights. Honor killings, completely forbidden. Completely forbidden. But you see how they reinsert these things through, different things like hadith and different interpretations. These wicked, disgusting practices that these foul Arabs and whoever else had their whole, throughout their whole lineage. Islam was the thing that stopped that and changed them and made the dirty, filthy, disgusting dog of a human being, pig Arab, the worst person on earth. That's not me. That's Quran saying that. the power of Allah is he made those people worst to first in one generation. He took one man, Muhammad, and he blessed him to be able to pay the price to prove that this way of life is real. People can actually physically do this. And as soon as he was dead, they threw it all away. The last thing he said before he died, he was like, "This is my last advice for you guys. Don't break into sects." Because there wasn't no Sunni and Shia back then. They were like, he just said, "Just stay Muslims. That's good enough for you. Don't break into sects." That was the main man's last advice. What's the first thing these people do? I follow Ali. Well, I follow Sunni. Well, I follow this. I follow that. And now you got a million different sects. Right? You got 5 matabs, but you got all these. I mean, it's.
What's maftas?
So, what's that? Matab is like the main scholarly schools. Like there's Hanbali, Shafi, Maliki. These were scholars who developed off of authentic Islamic materials and authentic Islamic history, schools of interpretation, not interpretation as in like the theology is interpreted differently, but like how they'll stand and pray or how they'll greet each other, basic things like that. There's little differences because the prophet did this or the prophet did that. And he did it here one way and he did it different here the other way. So neither way is really wrong. It's just different ways of doing stuff. The problem is where you get into like hadiths and interpretations, because here's the kicker. Here's the one I know everybody was waiting for. There is hadiths that say Aisha was like 6, 7, or 8 when she married the Prophet Muhammad. When I first heard that, it didn't sit right with me at all. But what I told myself at the time was, this was the olden days. People didn't live that long. I don't know. I kind of tried to like, maybe I did make excuses. I don't know. But the main thing was in my heart was that I just didn't believe it because it wasn't in Quran. And Quran is the only thing that don't ever change. Hadith, who knows? These people who are also scholars have used both the hadith that the other people use, and they use outside of Islamic historical events and narration and historical timeline to prove both ways conclusively Aisha was between 17, 18, or 19 when she married the Prophet. It is impossible, historically, scientifically impossible, for her to have been 6, 7, or 8 years old. And the reason why I say that with confidence is because when you ask the people who have both sides of the knowledge how they came up with this, they'll trace the whole thing back and they'll compare everything and they'll cross-reference and they'll prove what they say. When you ask the 7, 8, 9 year or 6, 7, 8-year-old people what they say, how do they prove it? The only thing they have is hadith. They have the same hadith, and there's other hadith that contradict those. There's the timelines that they're not dealing with that the other people have. It's just a filthy practice. Same with bachi-bazi over in Afghanistan, how they keep touching the little boys. Same with that taharash thing where they just like groups of Arab dudes just run up around women and just start, raping and molesting them and ripping their clothes off and stuff. All this stuff that I keep mentioning, it's all haram. It's all plainly listed as illegal, totally forbidden. But not only do these people do this stuff, they try and justify it theologically. And that's one of the reasons now, while we'll get into some other stuff later, but like I'm at the point where I'm basically advocating a complete separation from the new Muslim, the revert, the convert, and the born and bred Muslim. Because out of all this stuff we just said that is like, we'll get into it more, the corruption and the blah, blah, blah. It's too much and I don't want to deal with it, but there's no way I'm going to sit next to somebody in prayer who thinks it's okay for that grown man to have sexual intercourse repeatedly with a little child and say it's his wife. It's rape. Those people are raping children and they know it. Maybe some tiny segment of sociopathic people are so whacked out that they don't know it's wrong to do that. But even they know that they can't get away with it, so they sneak around and do it until they get caught. These people, or like the grooming gangs and the stuff that you hear about in the UK, where like thousands of young, mainly white girls, young, a lot of them under 13, raped, abused, hooked on drugs, even murdered by these people. And they call them the grooming gangs. And thousands and thousands and thousands of these victims from each gang all over Europe. What am I supposed to do with those people? I'm supposed to sit next to this person and pray and shake his hand and tell him salam when either he's a part of that or he won't stand up to that? Forget that. Anybody who puts their hands on children like that, man, and we're coming to the close of part one here. This was the setup. We're about to launch off on the next one because a lot of these things start to come from behind me having to try and like flesh it out. It just comes out into the forefront. And I guarantee you one thing for me personally, guaranteed, I'm never going to accept someone hurting children. And as we get into these things later on, you're going to learn some more things. I'm just going to put something out right now. Every time somebody's online and you think you're talking to a kid that you're grooming or you're getting somewhere, every time you're talking to what you think is a pimp that's going to deliver you a kid, every time you think you're talking to a parent that's going to sell you their child, every time you talk to somebody and you just think you're right in the line, it's the dirtiest, most foulest, most kinkiest, nastiest thing involving children, and you thought you was going to, hey man, maybe you will get away with it. Or maybe some To Catch a Predator fool will come out there and put you on blast on TV. But another option is you're going to run into somebody else who doesn't care about TV, who doesn't care about the law, who doesn't care about none of that. So every time you people get online and you think you've got the perfect setup and you're about to do some children super dirty, or you think you've been meeting with somebody and it's all set up and it's ready to go, my advice to you, go out and find you an 18-year-old that looks like they're 12, have a ball, pretend whatever you want to pretend. Because anybody who crosses the line and comes after children, what you thought was going to be your ultimate hookup to give you the most perverse, horrific horror show that you could perpetrate onto a child, you never know. That person may be the one who's going to help you find out what it's like to be violated. I'm going to end it with that.
Well, thank you for sharing. I almost, in a way, I feel like this is like the deep personal background. It begins to move in towards your moral and political analysis of your own situation in the world, but this is the deep personal background, and so I guess we can consider that part one. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I haven't done this before. I haven't really talked about this stuff, but my main goal is to see some justice. If that can't happen, at least I don't want to see this happen to people anymore. You know, if people can get educated as it falls into the other stuff that we're talking about up the line with this, I want to stress, I don't say I'm a good person. I don't say I'm a righteous person. I'm trying to be, and I've fallen because that's what happens when I told you about how things go south after you've given everything you can, or you feel like you have for your faith and for your community. You get to a point where it's like, I don't consider myself a good person. I've got good tendencies and I want to do good things and I believe in these things, but I have my failings too. So I'm not judging. I'm not sitting here and judging your average person. Your average person might be better than me, but I'm also not out here screaming to be a leader and telling people to pay attention to me and give me money and attention and feed yourself into the energy and the resources you got. Burn up that bandwidth on my pipe dream because I'm really either doing nothing or I'm actually promoting the bad stuff, you know? So I don't sit there and say that I'm the paragon of virtue, but what I do say is if even somebody in my wretched state can get it together to do the little bit of good I got done, what's everybody else's excuse, you know?
Well, and it sounds like you desire to be good, and you are open to admitting your own personal failings, which is like the ground source of potential human morality. And what you've identified both within your own experience and your own communities and your own religious experience, this has a lot to say for other communities too, I would say, including, we talked a little bit yesterday about, the Jewish community, the Christian community, the Muslim community. So there's a lot I think, to learn and to begin to compare, contrast, juxtapose, educate publicly about, and even beyond just religion, but also political context or nationality, our American context. And there's so much to be dealt with in terms of what you've already described, I think, in terms of, the quiet, the silence, the how easy it is to look the other way. And that in many ways, that is the crux of our moral failing cooperatively and together, is our willingness to look the other way so that we may not get ostracized. And meanwhile, the most vulnerable continue to get hurt the most. So I think there's a lot of rich potential moral learnings from your deep personal experience that you've shared, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for that, man. And I hope that other people will, they don't have to like me or agree with me, but if they'll listen to what's said here and they'll put the pieces together with the next broadcast, I think they're going to get a feeling that, like, I'm not the person who's out here saying I have all the answers, and I'm not out here sitting on judgment on your average person, but the people who are supposedly the leaders and the people who elevate themselves and demand elevation and the people who are burning through the resources that are desperately needed to enact real change, that stuff's got to be confronted. And even if, if I can kick it off, let's get some of these goodies in here who actually have clout with the hipster left wing or whatever, and get them to confront it, because they obviously don't accept anything I got to say, even though I'm proving it's true. So I'll look forward to continuing this conversation, and I thank you for allowing me to have the space to share this. And for everybody who's listening, this is, maybe it sounds easy because I'm talking about this because I lived it, but this is not stuff that I've really put out there. There's stuff here that some of the stuff I never told anybody. And I'm not trying to, I don't know, man. I hope that what I went through wasn't for nothing. And because I know there's people that suffer a lot worse than me. And I just hope that the suffering that people go through will eventually lead to other people saying, either I don't want to see that to happen to them, or just out of self-preservation, I don't want to see it happen to me. So let's clean it up, man. And I thank you for the opportunity, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing from yourself. And until our next call. All right. Bless
All right.
out.
Peace, homie.
All right, peace.